I wish to express my profound gratitude to His Holiness Patriarch Kirill for blessing this event and for continuing the memory of Bishop Basil, and also to Father Tikhon for arranging this event. This is something that truly I believe is blessed by God. With joy I greet you all on this evening in which we commemorate Bishop Basil. Christos Voskrese! Bishop Basil was a very important part of my life. He was a huge influence, and especially at a very early and formative time in which I was making the decision to go to seminary. And even before that, in deciding to try and pursue a monastic life. When I was still in the university, I spent a summer under the direction of a certain hieromonk in a monastery, and Bishop Basil was very close to our little brotherhood of three of us, and exercised great care that everything went well for us in that little monastic community in the town of Calistoga, in the Uspensky Monastery. Later on, as I continued my university studies, he was especially encouraging as I would go to see him in San Francisco on many different occasions, go to serve with him in the cathedral and in various parishes where he would visit. And finally, one of the most memorable events of all was when I decided to apply to seminary and needed his blessing. And I drove up the coast about 100 kilometers from Santa Cruz to San Francisco, and he invited me into his home, and we talked about serving the church, we talked about seminary, we talked about spiritual life. He was ever strong and encouraging, and gave me some very solid direction, which certainly I followed for the rest of my life in embracing the life of a priest. And so as the afternoon drew on, and it was a cool and rainy San Francisco evening, he said, "Well, I can't send you back hungry." So he went into the little kitchen in his apartment and fixed me dinner. Some kind of Russian fish soup. I remember still 30 years ago. Bishop Basil was always full of joy and full of kindness. There were many other times in which I had a chance to get to know him, get to see him, serve with him, pray with him. There were difficult times in San Francisco. And then I went off to seminary, and his path took him another direction, and the next time I encountered him was in Moscow, when he was living there at the Donskoy Monastery, where, having just come to Moscow to work in the publishing department on Ruski Palomnik, I started attending church, and even was invited to sing in the choir at Donskoy Monastery. And Bishop Basil was there, and of course he remembered me very well, and his wonderful grandfatherly way was a huge encouragement to me. Again, I encountered him several years later, when he came back to San Francisco area, and we had a retreat where all of the mission clergy were gathered. And he spoke about his life, about his episcopacy, and about the spiritual life. And that was a wonderful thing, because it was a time of reconciliation. He'd had a very hard time in the San Francisco diocese, and there was a great need for that kind of reconciliation, for that kind of brotherly restoration of our Christian unity. And that was a huge and wonderful event. And as always, he was full of kindness and love, and of fatherly instruction. Bishop Basil is somebody who I will always remember with great love and with tremendous gratitude. And now, having myself come to Washington, to the place where he served, where he lived, I am tremendously grateful to God for the opportunity to continue the memory and the legacy of Bishop Basil, and to really embrace the love and the sanctity which pours out from everything that he has touched. when we go to visit his grave, when we come to his apartment here, where he used to live, to serve in this little altar in which he himself served, which he had set up when he lived here in retirement in his last years, and from which he did so much for the propagation of the gospel during the Soviet period and in the early post-Soviet period. We feel his presence, we feel his prayers, and we give thanks to God for his life. I wish to express my great gratitude to Natalia Nestorova for her tremendous role in the preservation of the archive and of the legacy of Bishop Basil. This is something extremely important, I believe, for posterity, for all of those who not only wish to look historically at the renaissance of Orthodoxy in Russia, but also spiritually, because his role was far more than simply a preacher. His role was that of a great spiritual father, and a spiritual father to many thousands of those who listened. So we give thanks to God for you and for your role, and wish you many, many years. As I understand, this is also a commemoration of your birthday. And I'm also profoundly grateful to all of those in Russia, and for the tremendous dedication and work of all of those who continue the memory of Bishop Basil, who not only continue his memory, but continue in that same spirit of love and compassion and absolute dedication to our Lord Jesus Christ, and the propagation of the gospel and the cultivation of the growth of the Orthodox Church in Russia and in many other places. May God bless you all. Christ is risen. Christos voskresie.